Let me change that.
Okay, let's see.
Isn't Kai part of your YouTube name?
Yeah, but like y'all got the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
How do I do this?
Let me check if it's working here.
Um,
Yeah, I think it might be actually.
Click on the 3 dots next to your square, and then you should be able to edit your name.
Cool. We are live. So what's up, guys? It's Amar from Pokéballs Hub. I don't think I've ever talked to you guys on the screen. This is our first live stream. We are going to be recapping Collecticon Los Angeles that just happened this weekend on March 1st and 2nd at LA Convention Center. I have with me some of the most badass vendors in the DFW area. We've got Atlas Win, Mushu's Collectibles, and Meta Khai. I'll start with Atlas. Just off my knowledge, Atlas is kind of the Gold Star god right now. He's got many of the PSA 10s. He's killing it with the Gold Star game. If you have one, he's got what he wants to buy it. I think your claim to fame, right, is when you started with having a bunch of first ed shinings in a PSA 10 and started vending from there. So everybody say hello to Atlas Win, Miller.
Hey guys.
What's good, Miller?
If I have any PSA 10s, let me know. I'll buy any.
And then next we have Mushu's Collectible, who you guys are, if you don't know now, you will know in the future. This is the Poncho King. He's been killing it. I mean, if you saw, just go on his Instagram from last year to now and see how his inventory has exponentially just blown up into, I don't know, like more than one Poncho set, 3 Marios right now. The dude's crazy. He's killing it. And fun fact with Milan Mushu is he used to be, as a kid, a competitive Pokemon player. And he's been a big Pokemon fan for a long, long time. So everybody say hi to Mushu.
What's up, Mushu?
Okay, and finally, we have our special guest, Meta Khai, Dylan. He's one of the OG vendors in the DFW area. We all respect him a ton. He's been killing it in the vendor game. He's one of the early starters, adopters of the vendor POV game as well. And he did competitive MetaZoo playing and also got into vending, a couple of years ago. And has just been blowing up since then. He's actually been vending the Collecticons with, as you know, Bulbasaur. So that's been really exciting to watch. So everybody say hi to Dylan.
Hi, Dylan.
Can I get your autograph?
What's up, guys? Can I get y'all's autographs, please?
Okay, so to start, we're from DFW, right? So we can tell you a bit about the DFW vending scene. It's hyper competitive. It's a big market. There are tons of LGSs. There are tons of bigwigs there, like people like Ken Lee and so on. And then there are vendors like us, and there's a huge community of collectors as well, and scalpers and all the rest. So we get a mix of everything, and I think Pokemon, my guess, the reason why it's so big down in the DFW area is because the sports cards game and sports in general in DFW is so huge and has been for years and years and years. And I think that's just trickled into the TCG space, not to mention how diverse DFW is and how much we've adopted things like anime and other things of different cultures in DFW since a young age. But we all went to Collecticon LA this past weekend, and it was a really, really fun time. I think other than, the shows we've done before this year, Collecticon LA was probably the biggest one, and we were really excited to see what it was all about. I mean, there are tons of influencers, tons of huge name vendors, tons of collectors, buyers, all that. So maybe, if you guys want to chat about your experience vending at Collecticon and how you felt about it.
Well, for me, I thought that was pretty fun. I thought all the shows are always really fun, but LA was like pure degeneracy in terms of flips this weekend. My buddy Miller up there was part of that.
That's crazy.
It was very action packed the entire weekend for myself, at least. And I know a lot of our vendor buddies saw like all the famous YouTubers not in just the Pokemon space, but in like actual like YouTuber space, which is like a crazy mesh of worlds. So LA was really a nice melting pot for that first day. I had a lot of fun just screwing around, to be honest.
How about you, Miller?
For me, it was a good show, but it wasn't what I expected from what I heard for an LA Collecticon. The sales were good, but it was also great. Like Meta Khai was saying, seeing all these famous people. Like there was the Costco guys there, and I really didn't expect them to be there. That was funny to see them there.
The Costco guys?
Yeah,
Boom.
Oh, they're called the Costco guys?
yeah, they're the Costco guys.
Oh. Boom! I saw that. I did see that.
And it was also my first time in Cali, so it was really fun, you know, being with everyone and trying all the food, and definitely a place I'd like to go back to.
What about you, Mushu?
I think overall it was definitely a really good show. Kind of like what Dylan said. It's kind of a melting pot of like everybody that's in the vending scene. All the big names are there. For me, I saw it really as like a networking event. I went, walked around, met everybody I've been virtually talking to. You know, kind of good to put a face on the name. Sales wise, amazing show. You know, you guys probably know by now that I only carry like 30, 35 slabs with me. And so if 5, 6, 7 of them move, like it's a really, really good weekend. So that happened. And so it was also the first show that I've done in Cali. I've never had a chance to do like the Pasadena front row because it keeps getting fully booked. And so this one I was super excited about, you know, kind of went in with decent expectations, but I knew that there's also a lot of like high-end buyers in LA, which kind of works well with, you know, everything that I've been doing. So yeah, I think overall it was a solid show.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, my experience was similar. Like, there was just so many people that I had known online and that I met for the first time or met again because, you know, I was at Front Row in Pasadena and I was at Collecticon, New Jersey, Houston, etc. So just kind of rekindling that flame, especially in this crazy hot market, was a lot of fun. Seeing and walking around and seeing what all the vendors had and didn't have and wanted to sell and didn't want to sell was pretty intriguing to me. My experience vending this event, I would say it was an average show for me. I've got a blend of singles and slabs, usually like probably 60% in value in singles, 40% in value in slabs. And this show, I think, was probably more of a single show to start. And I think as it went down, you know, later in the day on Saturday, there were a lot of slab sales. There were a lot of more high-end buyers. So it was a good blend, but it wasn't super constant for me, right? So, you know, as Saturday died down, I think it started to get pretty slow. And then Sunday, instead of vending the whole day, it was kind of so slow in the beginning that I decided to walk around. Now that might be for a few reasons. One, you know, our location it wasn't totally in the back, but it was kind of more towards the back middle. And two, I think the other thing that was an observation of mine for this was there were so many freaking vendors and booths at this Collecticon in particular. And
there was a crap ton.
Yeah. And, you know, I was walking around and it's like, you know, you're competing with people who have just a whole case of mega singles and a whole case of 151. And you have people with all the alt arts. You've got people with a dozen bubble mews, and everybody is kind of spoiled for choice. They can go around and you can, you know, shop around, see what best deal you can get. And as a result, as a vendor, my experience too was customers would come and say, you know, for a $700 slab, they'll be like, would you do 620, right? And, you know, back in the middle of last year, all day that was going to happen. But in this market, it was a little surprising to see that. So the other observation, of course, it was saturated with a lot of vendors, but the buyers were feeling more comfortable making deals. And I think maybe some of that is because the market is cooling off a little bit, right? Not all the vendors are like, nope, I'm at market, I'm at sticker, this is it. because everything's growing. I think we all know as vendors, everything is not growing anymore.
Yeah,
If
some cards I'm
anything,
like, oh, go for it, buddy. Please.
yeah, it's starting to correct a little bit, and
Yeah.
that just means some people are going to have paper hands. That means some people are going to be more motivated to sell, especially things like alt arts or inflated SIRs, IRs, etc. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting that it wasn't this like crazy rush of a show, constant sales, etc. But that doesn't mean that the market wasn't strong. It's just that it wasn't what it was to me in January, February.
Right.
It is a little weird. Sorry, you really go for it?
No, I was just saying, I was agreeing.
Okay. I was just saying, like, all of us, like, on both sides of the table are literally, like, super hesitant on what the heck's going to go on in the next, like, 30 days. Because tax returns are coming, so it's like, oh, sales are going to be hot. But then also the market is dropping, ooh, sales are going to suck. So it's like, do you pick up now or do you wait? Me personally, I'm only buying things that are like, they have a higher confidence rate per se in terms of retaining their value. Like Moonbryons, like all y'all know I'm a huge believer in Moonbryons, but I am not touching those things in terms of buying at the moment. I'm gonna let it die a little bit personally. I think it's gonna dip a smidgen, and then it'll be ready to tackle yet again. But for the most part, I'm like, get those away from me. And then all those ARs and IRs, I'm like, I don't want none of those things. But there's certain cards that you can still just tackle with full confidence that you believe in it's gonna grow. Like I talk about on my Instagram quite a bit, like the Kingdra Greninja plays. I still believe in the card, and it's very cheap for what it is, so I'm comfortable taking those in. But yeah, that's just like the weird market we're in right now. It's like a lot of money coming in, but a lot of market moving, so it's less. Everyone's just like stabbing each other with swords, trying to figure out where to go.
Well, what's interesting too is like you mentioned some of those like hot button IRs and things that are just like inflated and crazy. The flip side of that, though, what's funny is, I had some IRs sitting from the beginning of the year or the end of the year, like Drowsy and Riolu and Slowpoke. And you would think in this market that, buyers would be attuned to, hey, like this is kind of expensive. Let me wait a minute. But because there's so much attention on those cards, I actually sold a lot of those super inflated IRs this weekend.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Like me, I'm on the paper hand side of like these hot items. I'm like, oh, please, I don't want none of this.
I mean, yeah, as a buyer, it's like, why, Drowsy was what, like $80 at some point? I'm not going to pay 70% of that right now.
No,
right.
Not at all.
Yeah. How did you guys feel, you high-end guys, on how people were buying? Like, was there some observations around ponchos, around Gold Star, Shinings, etc.? Did you feel like it was just as healthy, or things shifted a little bit? How'd that all go for you?
I'm starting to notice a big shift from modern to more like vintage EX era. I don't know if you saw, but on a lot of Instagrams for a lot of these vendors and buyers, a lot of the EX era cards, like EXs, were selling a lot. A lot of Gold Stars were selling a lot of Gym Heroes, and all these older sets are starting to sell more than modern. And I think people are switching from modern, after they cash out from it, more into vintage.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're so right. Like, let's say you're a new collector and you started the fall of last year and you decided, you know what, I'm going to go balls to the wall in prismatic, and then you pull a Sunbreon. We all know it's a moon, but Sunbreon, and it grades a 10, right? And you get the slab back, and suddenly you have $4,000. And a lot of people, especially people who are in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe even mid 20s, they might want to go back and revisit, hey, like I want a first edition Espeon PSA 10. And now that I have $4,000, I want to do that. I definitely think some of that is definitely happening. And it's causing, a ripple effect. You've got modern so high, it's making vintage week after week go up. How'd you feel about ponchos, Milan?
So I think LA, in terms of ponchos, I think LA was more kind of like Atlanta, where, we didn't have an ideal location. And for most people already know, Miller and I we're pretty much vending next to each other through this entire year at Collecticon. And so he's got all the PSA 10 Gold Stars. I have all the PSA 10 ponchos. And so we both didn't have an ideal location at this one and Atlanta. And what I noticed at Atlanta kind of coming into LA is I guess at Collecticon, there's a lot of ponchos. There is a lot of ponchos. Like, you walk around, the issue right now is most people, I want to say 90% of vendors have the exact same thing. They do. And I guess with ponchos specifically, everybody walked and they saw everybody else having it. So they immediately thought, oh, this is not good. Like, there's so many out here. I thought there weren't that many out there. They're probably going to go down. And I mean, I think we saw like a very, very small drop on the Mario this past weekend. You know, the green Rayquaza dropped a little bit. You know, the rest of them have been doing really well. Like the Magikarp and Gyarados, you know, you saw a lot of people with sequential sets, but they just have trouble moving it. For me personally, I mean, I see a lot out there and I don't see people moving him, but I think about it as like, I'm really branded around ponchos. So it really doesn't matter to me if I see too many of them. I'm still going to keep buying them because I know that they're still one of the most liquid cards out there in the game, aside, you know, right next to Gold Stars. And I think 99% of my sales this past weekend were Gold Stars, ponchos, and first ed shinings. Like, as crazy as it is, you know, the whole modern boom, it's kind of turned me off with like alt arts and SIRs and all that stuff. I'm starting to just look at things like valuation wise. Like at one point, I think I told Meta Khai, I was like, why is a PSA 10 Moonbreeze on the same price as a PSA 10 Skull Poncho?
It's crazy.
Some stuff makes absolutely no sense. You look at the pop, and then you start finding these small pockets, these discrepancies in the market, and you capitalize on it. And I mean, yeah, I think like right now, everybody needs to have a game plan in case things start dropping. Like for me personally, I want my inventory as liquid as possible. I want to be able to, you know, quickly move in and out of things as, you know, whenever I want, whether it's
time to buy the dip.
Time to buy the dip.
That's right.
And I come from an investment background, like very, very strong investment management background. So I look at a lot of these things. When I look at inventory, mentally I hit the rebalance button when I see I have a ton more ponchos than other stuff. You know, you guys probably have noticed that I had 29 ponchos in LA. I cut that down to maybe 12 or 13, not because I don't believe in them, but because I knew that I saw Gold Star start creeping up, and I figured let's have a more balanced approach. And, you know, going into LA, it ended up being very, very rewarding because I had people coming for both things. And so I think right now it's just really, really important that you have a strategy. Like you keep things balanced. And I think that's honestly the best way to traverse like any sort of like market correction, like what we're seeing, and all the volatility that's also hitting.
You brought up something really interesting and that was poignant to me, was you focusing on liquidity. On a lot of these live streams, you're going to see a bunch of sealed investors talk about holding on to sealed product, and they are not clued in on how us vendors work. And a cornerstone of our vending strategy, I think, for all four of us is liquidity. Get something, make your margin, sell it, move on, and keep growing your inventory so that it builds upon itself. And then suddenly you have your inventory working as capital for you, right? Mm-hmm. That's something that I think is worth talking about a bit more, why liquidity matters so much, and why we aren't the type of folks who will say, I mean, hey, I've got Zards here that I'm sitting on all year. I'll tell you that, 151 Zards. But for the most part, there are there's a motive to kind of keep it kind of chugging, keep that wheel turning. And I think for me, I can start like the reason is you're never gonna know exactly what the market is gonna do. I love forecasting. I think I'm pretty good at it, but that doesn't mean that I'm not wrong all the time. And the safer, more risk-averse thing to do is to buy into stuff that you know is relatively liquid or super liquid, and then don't hold it when you think it's going to get to an all-time high. Sell it at the margin you want and keep going. what's your experience with liquidity, and how do you guys approach buying and selling with regard to liquidity?
Who wants to go first? Meta Khai.
I was like, can I tag in real quick? So pretty much my first years selling Pokemon, I've like desperately needed capital and liquidity quite often. So I've always been forced into this like back wall that I've always had to sell and cash margin pretty much. But working with a lot of these like larger end players, I do believe that there is a massive value in holding sealed collection. But I also believe in like this flipping mindset as well too. I think the perfect thing to do is to do literally a hybrid of both. You literally have to do both. You because markets are hot, markets are cold. You literally just catch your 10 to 20% margins every single time, and you will have that guaranteed profit. And then stuff that you get for like dirt cheap, like example, I think we posted on our story was like the 151 boxes. I got those for like $55. I threw that in the closet. I'm like, I don't want to touch those at all because I did my fair share of selling back then or last year. I made my margins, which was like 15% around there per box, and then I had my those profit margins paid off for like the long term stuff that I decided to hold over, and now those boxes are worth like 140. So theoretically, if you do both and you play both worlds, you can really win pretty big. So after like probably 5 years in the selling space, I've learned that a mix of both is really good. The ultra wealthy literally just throw it in the closet and call it a day. But your boy is not ultra wealthy, so vending is the way to go. We have to literally catch our own margins and work a little harder to catch up to these big dogs. And to me, I'm okay with that. So that's where my take is personally.
I finally have a Evolving Skies box in my pantry.
Hey, those are good.
So I am dabbling into sealed.
I don't know how you guys hold sealed product. Like if I had it, I'd probably middle of the night, like 2 a.m. I have a dream that I'm gonna pull a Moonbreon. I'll rip it open and I get trash.
Oh, you got the hands.
I don't do sealed. Like I just
the
I don't
itchy
trust
hands?
myself. I've been in the game ever since I was a kid. I've been through every single set, and I've ripped open so many packs, and I'm like, I don't trust myself to do this now. Especially when I want to look at doing this like full time. I don't trust myself, but I do trust myself in active, like actively managing my inventory, like what I per se consider my portfolio, because I'm constantly looking at it at home. I'm constantly figuring out what works, what doesn't. And I mean, that's kind of how I think about it. Like liquidity is absolutely key. And if people in the stock market, whenever stuff starts going down, normally what you want to do is you want to either buy the dip or you want to have cash liquid. And when it comes to cards, like I've seen people walk up to Miller, like Houston Collecticon last year, guy tries to offer him a Rolex. I've had people offer me myself Rolexes for ponchos, and I'm thinking about it. To me, like before even starting vending, I thought like Rolexes they're some of the most liquid watches in the game. And so when somebody offers you something like that for something big like ponchos, you immediately start connecting the dots and thinking this is actually very, very liquid. And so I think about every single poncho I have, I think about that as liquid cash, because as a vendor, you're not going to buy things at market. You're going to always buy into something that's at a deal. And if you can buy into something very, very liquid at a discount, I think about it as I'm getting like a discount on cash. Like if I ever want to get money, I'm going to be able to move it out. I'll be able to recoup my full cash plus a little bit more, and then I can immediately move to the next thing. And so like, that's how I see it. I saw a lot of people just coming to me and offering me ponchos, and like, I get one side of it, like, oh dude, like, how to move ponchos, but the other side of it, it's like other people are having trouble moving them. And I think they just don't understand the liquidity aspect of it. And, once you start thinking about it, everything through a liquidity standpoint, especially when the market's correcting, I mean, I think it's a whole different ballgame. Like that's when you start thinking like smart money and not just like a retail buyer. That's how I see it.
What about you, Miller? I mean, what's interesting with at least what I've observed with you, Miller, is you have a large collection of PSA 10 gold stars, and the market for that is very limited, but
Yeah.
the demand for that is insane. So I'm curious to hear from your standpoint what kind of clientele you get, especially at places like Collecticon, and if there are serious buyers, how it all works, how the liquidity of gold star 10s works, and how you source them.
So, liquidity wise, I agree with Meta Khai because the market for them is so strong. Like, there's barely any on the market for a lot of these PSA 10 gold stars. Like, I just
True.
got two recently. Like, Umbreon, that's a pop 55. That's not going anywhere. So I can sit on it and ask what I want, pretty much, which kind of sounds like unfair, but with not many listed on the market, I sit there and I just take in offers. Like last year at Houston Collecticon, I had the Crystal Lugia, and that was comping around 11,000, and it was my PC, and I just didn't want to like let it go, so I always throw a high number on it. And then this guy, he decides to walk up. He's like, "I like your Lugia. It's a good copy. I'll pay extra for it." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it."
What?
Let's go.
Yeah. And I was like, "Let's do the deal."
Wait, so you had your price, and he just said, "I'll pay you extra for it"?
Yeah, he was like, because he saw comps at 11, and I will always be honest. Like, my prices are high, and I'll tell all the buyers that, and they're like, "Okay, as long as the copy's clean or whatever." And nowadays, that like really is emphasized for these
Yeah.
big purchases like gold stars or crystals or higher end cards. People will pay that premium for it. And so that's why I still have all those gold star 10s, because realistically I can sit on it and then just wait for a high offer or the number I want instead of having to sell it for market.
Supply and demand,
Mhm.
baby.
Yeah. That's so interesting. You mentioned the quality of the PSA 10. You know, I think it definitely speaks to grading practices and the different graders and how consistent or inconsistent that can be. You know, whether it's an older cert or a newer cert or just, you know, a lucky day, grading can often be a crapshoot. Some people would describe it as that. And with ultra high end, I absolutely see the wisdom in someone inspecting a card, you know, with fine tooth comb and saying, "Hey, like this is a 10, but it's a 3 cert and it looks funky, and I don't want to pay the premium when I can get a 9 that looks better." How do you guys feel about grading, especially with ultra high end? Like, do you think there should be disruption? I know we've all heard about Tag and what they're doing. Do you think it should change, or do you guys like the human element and kind of the gambling aspect of sending something off for grading just to hope for a 10?
I mean, gambling. I do like to. I do like to dabble a little bit. I guess I'll take the lead on this one. I still prefer PSA. Oh, well, okay, let's start over. I love Beckett slabs. I love the feel of it, the look of it, and just how clean it is. But nobody cares about it in the entirety of a market, so that's the only reason I don't carry it as much. So the world, not the world, but the the vendor world is dominated by PSA. So that's the only reason why I commit to PSA in terms of selling. So I'm just trying to remove my own bias as a personal human being and like say, hey, I love BGS, but hey, everyone else likes Beckett. Or sorry, did I say that wrong? The other way around. Everyone. Thanks, Darren. So, I saw this dude the other day, but I personally think that PSA is still going to dominate the field. Although Tag may be more correct, may be more accurate, I do think that the field will be dominated and pushed by PSA for the next 2 or 3 years. I can't speak beyond that. I don't know what's going to happen then, but that's my personal take. I would rather take the gamble and risk the PSA 9s and 10s. And then if it doesn't hit what I get it or was desired, I'll just sell it as is. I don't mind
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, PSA for sure is the most liquid, the most standard. Um, I'm going to talk smack for a second. I know we're on live stream and people can hear this, but
Oh snap!
somebody, I don't remember who it was. It actually could have been one of you. Told me, yo, the only difference between Tag and AGS is that Tag's branding and marketing is better.
Oh,
I mean,
and
I told you that.
you said that?
Yeah, we were talking about it.
oh man.
You know, I wouldn't have thought that just on the outside, because of course Tag is very suave online and they've got clean branding. They remind me a lot of, like, do you see those like barbecue pitmasters that wear the black gloves and like chop the brisket? It's very that. But then we were at Collecticon. Exactly.
Okay.
We were at Collecticon, and the vibe of the Tag booth and the people wearing Tag shirts walking around, holy crap. It was hyper stylized. It was frou-frou. It was, I'm the coolest kid on the block. It was very like this trying to convey cool energy that I absolutely was not anticipating. And it's an interesting observation, like, to what extent is the come up on Tag just communication, PR marketing, and to what extent is it the savvy, wonderful technology? I think, of course, there are a few things that are really going for Tag. One, like, they're getting some market acceptance. You can see it on eBay auctions. You can see it a lot of places. I think a lot of that is born out of the right people talking about it positively. I think the other thing that's going for Tag is, of course, what they're trying to do in the future, which is have standalone pods where you can put in a card, spend $12, get it immediately. Yeah, go ahead.
You know what's crazy? They were like literally in the field, like you could see it happening like day by day. Like they took grading on Saturday, and people were coming up to my booth. Hey, do you accept Tag? I was like, how do you get this so fast? Like, they're literally grading people's cards like from day 1 to day 2, which is massive in terms of like speed and grading and getting liquidity back. Because you could turn your like $10 raw card to like $100 graded card just because it's a Tag 10 now. It's probably like maybe like 20% cheaper than a PSA 10, but you did it within a day. You've expedited your ability to earn money. So big props to Tag on that. I still don't like them per se in terms of like competing in the vendor space, but I got to give them where credit's due. That was like a massive win for that I saw as a random vendor like on the street. I just saw all their Tag stuff coming into the booth, which is crazy. True.
Yeah, I mean, you put up the next day slab up against PSA now taking north of 3 months again. We could be seeing 6 months really soon. I think there's a little bit of luck on their side right now with the market doing what it's doing and Tag, responding with really quick service. I could see this changing the landscape even as us vendors. I was walking around, I was about to make an offer on a Tag 10 Espeon Deoxys Tag team because I thought, hey, like, you know what, this is a cool slab, pretty liquid. I wonder how it would sell. And I will. I will actually do that. This year. I have an intention of having probably 5% Tag slabs in the future just to see slabs that I know will perform well. I kind of want to see what it's going to do and how quickly it's going to take, because we could enter a situation where, and this is my forecasting coming in, like I kind of think we could enter a situation where you get a Tag 10 now, and let's say it's 151 Zard, they're 800, 900 bucks now. Let's say like the Tag 10s are now starting to get that premium, and people are recognizing Tag 10s as better than a PSA 10. Suddenly Tag 10s on average are 20, 30, 40% more than a PSA 10. It's like a CGC pristine 10. Suddenly you've paid a lot less for Tag 10s and you got in on it earlier. I want to place some bets on that. I think it can happen, but honestly, we don't know, because there are a lot of haters in the space, and people do think that PSA is going to reign supreme, like this comment here. I don't think you're a hater, by the way, but I don't know, but I want to take the risk, and I do. I think ultimately like what Tag is doing, and I think it's good for the grading space. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you too. Honestly, like I really like the way their slabs look. Like their booth at the LA Collecticon looked like completely futuristic. Like they had people walking around with their t-shirts on and stuff. Like PSA normally doesn't do that, and I think it's nice that it's nice to have a new competitor in the game, but the barrier to entry is still very, very steep. You know, PSA really has a chokehold on like the game. And like for me, from a business perspective, I really just like looking at like I'm a man of the people. Like if I look at what people ask me for on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever it is, and I cater to them. If I start seeing an uptick in people wanting tag, then sure, maybe I'll diversify and look at getting some tags. But like aside from tags, you know, I'm a PSA only guy for the most part. I tried Gold Star BGS 8.5 Charizard and shot myself in the foot. Still made money, but it was literally a brick because right now, you know, with the optics with Beckett, people just don't really want it. And so I moved that and I'm back all PSA. So until you know, buyers start asking me for tag slabs, I'm probably just gonna stick with the PSA standard.
Pretty valid.
Cool.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna pivot here. I'm curious, what was y'all's best deal of Collecticon? I honestly, I did some good deals. I actually bought more than I sold, but my favorite deal, and I think it's my best because I don't PC a lot, but this is PC, is this Fart Swirl Espeon first
God,
ed.
I forgot you collect.
Compliments your shirt.
You guys see that? The ring light's getting in the way. Anyway, it's got a crazy fart swirl. I'll post it on social media later. That was my best deal of the day because I got it for pretty damn cheap.
Is that why you're wearing the shirt you're wearing?
He's famous for that.
I guess let's start with you, Miller.
It didn't happen at LA, but it was leading towards a deal later on. So I had met a guy online through Instagram on the UK, but he needed a middleman, and I was like, "Do you know anyone at LA Collecticon?" And he was like, "There was a guy named Pokesp," and I was like, "Oh, really? Well, I'll talk to him and then see if we can get a deal done." So from there, we kept talking, and then today we already confirmed the deal. It was the Gold Star Mew PSA 10, and I actually got to move it for 21K value,
Wow.
which is probably one of the biggest deals I've done ever. And it probably wouldn't have been done if I didn't go to LA Collecticon and have a middleman there for that.
Wow.
Only 30 Bands Miller can do this. Only.
How about you, Dylan?
Awesome, dude. I mean, I sold a lot of high-end stuff. Not a lot, but some gold stars. I actually moved a lot, like 2 or 3 gold stars I've been stuck with for like a long time. So I'm very happy there. I sold a Poncho Skull commission, and I had some Luigi half arts. I traded my 10 and also a 9. So I got rid of some of my high-end stuff, but literally, I don't know why it makes me so happy, but my best deal was literally a Rennie Moo deal. It was like, I literally don't, they're so amazing to me. I don't know why. They just evoke like a certain emotion from like me and my customers. It's just, they're so fun. So my favorite deal was, I was literally like sold out of them because people just cleared me out. And then this couple brought in like a binder full of them, and I was just like, "Hey, can I get some of those, please?" And then, so aside from those big deals, I think that particular one was my favorite deal out of the whole event, which is odd to say.
Yeah, the Rennie Moo game is so much fun.
It's crazy,
and people know it. You know, they recognize it, and the cards are so hilarious. That's great.
I get nervous every time I touch one of those things, but it still sells. So I'm just like, okay, sure.
Yeah. How about you, Mushu?
So I had two really big like standout deals. I have a high net worth collector back here in Dallas, and while I was at LA Collecticon, she wanted to start getting into not PSA 10 gold stars, but like maybe 8s and 9s because there's the huge price jump going to 10s. And I had a PSA 9 gold star Charizard, my inventory, and I just had it stickered at 9.5K, a little bit higher because I had a clean copy new cert. Well, I sent it to her, and next thing you know, I get 9,500 sent to me. And so just like that, I just pulled it out, put it in my Zion case and just kept rolling. And then Bevo knows him really well. Tyler Algier, that running back of the Falcons, he's been doing a lot of business with me, like just virtually. And I've been just shipping it to the Falcons training center, but he reached out to me like a couple of days before LA Collecticon. I didn't even know he was going to show up, but he's like, I'm missing 2 ponchos from my full set, the Rayquazas. And I'm like, I got you covered. And so I managed to grab those. He swung by, great guy, met him up, and I sold both new cert rays for 10.5K, all cash. And, a great connection to have, honestly. So just two
awesome,
huge deals. Yeah.
Like the fact that you sold to an NFL player is like crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, in person too. It's easy to sell to somebody through Instagram, but like them coming out and actually you getting to have that, connection and talk through things, like it's awesome. So.
And you said you sent stuff to him to his training facility? That's pretty badass.
Yeah, I think 2 times. He picked up the Pokéballs. He picked up the Groudon and the Kyogre Mega super cheap before the price jump. He got Kyogre at 800 and Groudon at like 750, and so I'm sure he's super happy.
Whew. Yeah, the Mega game. It's too late. For those of you watching, you can.
I missed that boat.
Yeah, you can even it's too late when you hop on Mercari and there's nothing. That's the last ditch where you can find a PSA 10 slab that no one's thinking about, and it's not there.
That's crazy.
But yeah, having a network, especially for you guys who do the ultra high end, is like super crucial to this aspect of liquidity, right? Because like you were saying, everybody in the room, I'll have a poncho sometimes, and like I have a brand now, so I actually sell them quite well. And thank you for the assist on the last sale. But it's true. Like there were so many vendors with so many ponchos and so many ultra high end slabs, and you'd walk around, they'd still be there. So curious to hear how you guys built up your clientele and network, and maybe some pointers for the audience on how to do it if you want to get in the ultra high end space.
Milan, did you want to go first?
Sure. So I started about 11 months ago, just kind of on a whim because I knew the market because I actually competed a lot. I back in 2021, I had a PC. I kind of sold it and flipped some stuff. I actually sold, I think, all of it to Ken Lee because he's local to me, and it just so happened that he gave me I think it was like $50,000, and I ended up buying a house with it. And after that, I was like, you know what? I think I'm done with Pokemon. And then I started talking to Brian. Started talking to Grogu, and kind of got my interest got rejuvenated. And it just so happened that I got in right before the first alt art boom. And ever since then, I just tried to do business with everybody because you're not going to network unless you build your network, you brand yourself, and you just show up to every single event. Like that's really it. And once your name gets out there, those people give your name to more people, and you have this gigantic network tree going on. And it's absolutely crucial right now. Like in a world where everybody wants to be a vendor, the people that are going to make it are the people that are branded well, that have the big network. It's not necessarily the inventory, it's the network. Because somebody with no inventory but with a big network can make something huge happen out of nothing. That's how I think about it.
And I would add to that, when you have your network, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Treat people well. have some freaking integrity.
Mhm.
Don't back out of deals. If you don't have references and you are well connected, start getting a reference page. But yeah, treat people with respect and meet them where they're at, and try not to ruffle feathers, especially when you're dealing with large amounts of cash. If
Yeah.
someone is wanting to walk away because they feel uncomfortable, let them walk away. If someone wants to save 5% more, let them have the conversation. Go ahead and talk to them and try to work it out. If it doesn't work for you, you can very kindly say, hey, this is not going to work for me. But I think a lot of interactions, and I think you guys have all experienced this, especially on places like Facebook, where you're protected by the screen. People are so quick to get offended or to try to take advantage or to just be antagonizing just because they're not getting the deal that they want. And as a vendor, as a deal maker, as somebody who's built a network, it's really important to know how to handle those situations in a way that still that doesn't tarnish your name. And honestly, the best approach is just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
But anyway, just wanted to add that.
I mean,
100%.
it's good you mentioned that, because like the four of us, we're like really good friends, and we all really started at square one. And I honestly think like because I did a deal with Meta Khai, I did a deal with Atlas, I did a deal with Pocket Pals. I feel like my network grew just because of that. And we're all kind to each other. Dallas is a competitive market, and all four of us are growing our brands just as well. Like there's enough room for everybody as long as you're kind, as long as you're trustworthy, and you just want to do good business. That's honestly all it is to it.
Yeah, I have some buddies that we were at shows sometimes, and like people just start being, how people or dudes talk to each other, just being a little aggressive, like ready to fight people over deals. I'm like, dude, y'all are gonna see each other multiple times at shows. You need to chill. Like,
Yeah.
these are gonna be like someone you might shake hands with down the road. So like, pull yourself together, man. don't fight this dude over some like $200
Shiny cardboard.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I have this like hardcore mindset that like for the moment that I'm building my brand, I'd rather shake 1,000 hands, and to the moment that I'm ready to shake 10 hands only, and I can just rest at that point. But I'm not there yet, so I'm shaking 1,000 more hands. So that's the mentality that I have personally. So I guess some advice for new vendors would be to be okay with taking some losses if you get to build a new connection, because the win down the road, if you can see it down the future, is more important. That's like screw your $10 loss sometimes is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if that made any sense, but
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah,
And I think you've done that,
1,000.
like Dylan's like a few steps ahead of where I'm at as a vendor, and I've come to him and tried to do deals, and we got to a place, and like Dylan did exactly that, where he cut me a good deal. I think probably my assumption is for the sake of the relationship, and there are times where you're going to want to do that, and not only because you're friends and you want to develop a real relationship outside of being a business person, but it does actually benefit your business,
Yeah.
and it can turn into hopping on a live stream together, or vending in a section together, yeah, or sourcing cards. I mean, Jesus, like Miller was responsible for my Mimikyu munch. The more connections you have, the more easily you can get what you want in terms of finding inventory, and the more recognition you're going to get. So yeah, if there are any new vendors here, like dealing with vendors and kind of cutting them a deal, or like leveling with them to get them what they need, it's not a pat on your back thing. It's just it's a way to like help everybody.
100%. And like, to get the deal done too, like it doesn't have to be Pokemon. Like for connections wise, this year when we first started and we were looking for tables for Collecticon throughout the year. It was tough to find them because a lot of the people were already sold out, or you could barely find them. So sometimes you have to build connections to get those tables to be able to vend at Collecticon. And that's what we did this year. Me, Milan, we were able to get a table for the rest of the year. for Collecticon from the bond/relationship I built with some of the people that I bought from.
Yeah, sometimes it just works out really, really good. I mean, I think Atlanta was our first Collecticon with Charlie, with Evolve Collectibles, who, graciously put 2 tables aside for us. And, I found myself in a deal where I got a card at 80%. That's exactly what we'd want. And I went to him and I was like, you know what? Like, you helped us here. Do you want to just take this at 80%? I didn't make anything off of it, but I'd never done a deal with him, and I knew that it would help him out as well. And kind of just say as a thank you, like, here you go. And I'm pretty sure he ended up moving it for full market, which still made me happy, and I know it made him happy knowing that like we have that mutual. And now we're talking like multiple times per week. Like we're good friends now, and we're also going to see each other through the rest of this year at Collecticon. So it's not necessarily all about money. It's all about building that friendship with them too, because you're not going to be able to. You won't know what somebody else can bring you in the future if you don't have the network with them. It's like it's like you and me with the Poncho X. Like I'm like I know you're my good buddy.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you have, and I have somebody in front of me. I'm not going to just be like, oh, I don't have it. Just leave it at that. Oh no, my buddy has it. Let him cook. Like literally, just let him cook. And we got good content out of it.
To piggyback off that, I know. I mean, maybe Milan could confirm this, but when we competed in our TCGs, we played in teams per se. Like in MetaZoo, it was like a solo competition, me versus the next person across the table. But it's so similar to the vendor aspect. Like we were all playing as individuals, but if our team wins, we can celebrate. Like you guys are like you're not like we're not all like pulled in together, obviously, but like you guys are my teammates in my head, and like like this is the DFW crew. In my head, you guys are my teammates. Like if y'all win, I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, one wins, we all win. That's how it works.
Exactly. So, what do you say? But that's the mentality that I have in terms of like competing. Is like we obviously all want to do our best and play to the meta. It's Meta Khai, right? Play to the meta, play to the best of our abilities. But if our team can win, let's let them win, right? Right? Don't take that away from them, especially when you need to celebrate that.
It's like testing decks against each other, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
Same thing here. Like we each have our own like opinion. We might have our own expertise. The only way for y'all to win as a team is you share your expertise with each other. And you're not trying to one up the next person. You want to keep it real and make sure they're successful as well. That's how it works at the end of the day. Like we're going to see each other. We're going to see each other at future events. We want to make sure we're all growing collectively. Mm-hmm. That's how I see it.
100%.
To that end, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
To that end, how do you guys feel about the environment in DFW in particular, and the different vendors and the competition? And of course, we want us all to win, but DFW is a very, very competitive scene. Like how do you guys feel about how it's changed over the years and what it's like now?
There are definitely a lot more vendors, I'll tell you that. But I think if you're able to branch yourself out from all the other vendors, you'll be fine, especially in how Collecticon has so many vendors as well. Like you diversify, and then you have different things than other people, and then if not, going back to connections, people will buy from you because of those connections. They'll come out to you.
I'll say since I started traveling much more this year, it's like, well, every time I travel, it's like going into like a ghost town because I don't know anybody in that freaking room, and aside from like the vendors that we made friends with and previous shows that we've already like landed on pretty much. But like I love NTX in particular. It's like literally catching up with all the homies. Like the one time I was back in Texas at a show, I was like, bro, I haven't been in Texas in like 6 months. It was so nice. And like everyone was it was super comforting just being in a room with all your buddies. Literally, like the buyers are your buddies. The sellers are your buddies. like the hosts are your buddies. It's a different vibe for me per se compared to like out of state. That's why I personally like the Texas states a lot more because I'm personally giving more deals to my friends here locally, just to like provide the network still and just make it happen pretty much. So me personally, like Miller said, there is a lot of new vendors though. So that's what I'm not used to. Like I came back, I'm like, oh my god, it's like four times it's like four times the people now. But it's still like a very good time for me at least. So in that regard, I personally just have fun catching up with everyone because I don't get much time to do that nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that. It's good to see more of you, buddy. It's good to see
Yeah,
you.
100%, bro.
Um, even if every time I open up our Facebook groups for DFW, it's like every single person wants to be a vendor. They go scalp some product like Prismatic. You don't even know, like, you've never heard of them before. Somebody just joins the group, does that, and they want trades at like 80%. And I'm just like, what? Like, this is not this is how it is now.
It is kind of normal now.
It is, but
Yeah.
the one thing I will say is with more and more vendors, shows like NTX it's blown up. It's gotten so freaking big. Like, the last NTX was, I've never seen that many people at a local show before like that. The Plano card show or the North Texas card show before, it wasn't nearly this big. And we had foot traffic the entire day. And each one of us, like, we were all making big deals. Like, it was a really good show for all of us. And so I think even though there's a lot of vendors, that are popping up, especially like in DFW, it just helps, like, I feel like we're going to see a lot more shows pop up, and that'll just give us more opportunities because, everyone's seeing the hobby just growing around here.
Yeah, I definitely think that the DFW market is so strong. We can really handle the volume of events that we have. I mean, there's NTX that people are mentioning, which is this Sunday. Everybody come. It's in Frisco. It's a new venue. It's huge. And Dan's doing an incredible job running that show, running marketing for that show.
Super good.
And yeah, we all do great business there. They have a trade night Saturday too. Please join that.
What?
But yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it starts at 5.
Didn't know that.
And there are other shows like DFW Card and Game Show or Gem Mint Junction, I believe. Tons of shows that have lots of foot traffic, lots of people wanting to come in and buy and sell and trade. And I think like what's happening, what we're seeing in DFW is a really, really good representation of what's happening across the US in terms of the Pokemon hobby. There are so many people who not only are starting to collect again, but are starting to want to make money off of this, which I think is new. I think it's newer. Like the average collector now has an incentive to make money off of their collection in an effort to cash out probably relatively soon, I would say. And the other thing we're seeing is tons of new people in the hobby who weren't aware of, I consider myself new as heck. Like I started in 23, I'm pretty freaking new. But there are people who have joined like last October, and they don't even know what happened with Sword and Shield. They didn't know that everyone hated Scarlet and Violet in the beginning of the era. They didn't know that alt arts used to be $100 to $300 or $400. And I think what's interesting is we're seeing so many people who are brand new at this and have a lot of money to spend, which is tricky as a vendor, because you have people who just really they don't know what they're doing with their money, and you don't want to sit there and guide them the wrong way. But at the same time, like, we're trying to sell and we're trying to take advantage of the market that we're in. So it's an interesting conundrum. But yeah, I think just long story short, because I went off on a tangent, DFW is a really great representation of the market right now. And I can't wait to see how it shifts this year. I've got a lot of predictions about what might happen. I think we're in a cool off period this month. I think things are going to get crazy again for Rocket. I think if Black and White comes back in some capacity, that's going to be great. Of course, everyone's talking about the 30th anniversary, but in general, I think it feels really good to be a DFW vendor in particular. We have so many shows, Dallas card shows next week, and just lots of opportunity. Okay, I'm going to pivot and ask, and I know Dylan, you got to leave in a minute, so I'm curious, what was the weirdest or most awkward transaction or interaction at Collecticon LA?
Oh God, the weirdest one. Oh God, if anyone's ready, can you tap in real quick? Like, I gotta think about the weird ones. Let me see. I take photos of all my customers just to like remember what cards they bought, so maybe that'll help with the deal.
I don't know if I have a specific weird one, but I will say it. Even though I kind of knew, and I've told you guys this. Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay.
I'm serious.
It was sorry. It just like clicked to my head. So I had 3 of those black label Pikachu stamp promos. I sold one, and I had brought one to the show. And this guy was like, "I literally just bought the PSA 10 one. I have no more cash, but I literally came in here to buy your a PSA 10 black label." And he was like, "Do you accept trades?" And I was like, "Yeah, what you got?" So he pretty much told me, he's like, "I got a bunch of Evolving Skies, Pokemon Center ATVs, Booster Box, Sea and Sky." He literally started listing a bunch of stuff. And then I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can you hold it for me for 10 minutes?" I was like, "I'll give you 10 minutes, but like, if you don't come back, I'm putting it on the shelf." You know what I mean? Like, I've learned that like not many customers actually come back.
Yeah.
So I started putting timers on people. I'm like, "Hey, if you don't come back in 20 minutes, it's over." So I put a little timer on him, and then he pretty much ran to his car and ran back. And then he was like, "I brought the cards for you. Can we make this deal happen?" And I was like, "Didn't you say there's an Evolving Skies box or something?" So he literally just ran back and forth, and he forgot the items pretty much. And then he had to do this like 2 or 3 times, and then I was just like, "Oh my God, where's it? I hope this is his product." You know what I mean? Like, I was just like swiping somebody right now. But he seemed pretty legit, and he seemed pretty excited to have the card. So I would say that's probably one of the weirdest things, or weirdest interaction, if there were one. Dude, you got to put a timer on people. Everyone's like, "I'll come back for the card if it's still there." You're lying to me. Yeah, I don't like people lying to me.
You know what? I will say though, like I'm that little shit when I'm walking around. I go, "I'll come back." I don't come back.
But I just say, I'll thank you for the, or I'm good for now. Thank you. Whatever. I just move on. Or at least for the most part, I think I do. But I don't know. Vendor tip: put a timer on people. It might work.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start doing that now. I'm recording it too, bro.
I'm telling you, put a timer on people.
You know, it would be nice if I could put a timer on people who are looking at my raw singles, trying to get graded copies.
Oh, dude. Well, I tell people, well, I'm very transparent. I'm like, "Hey, these are not gradable. I grade all the time. So just do with it as you please."
I guess my issue is I forget to pick through all the time. I'll be honest. I know it's irresponsible.
You have some good stuff in there.
But I have gradable copies in my inventory.
But I mean, that's good for your customers though. If they win, that's good.
And I kind of like doing that because if people want to get gradable copies, great. But there are some people who spend a lot of time and take up a lot of space trying to go through raw singles. And listen, love you to death. Thanks for buying the singles. But whew, if there was a timer, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I do think I have to go soon.
All right. So yeah, everybody say thank you to Dylan, Meta Khai. See you later. See you at NTX.
Thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to see you guys this weekend and all the people in the chat, especially Darren. You should be a Texan by now, pretty much. Well, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks, guys.
See you, buddy.
See you, man.
All right, see you, brother.
Okay. I don't have like one weird interaction, but one thing that was weird, I knew March was going to cool off, and I'd been saying it for weeks, but the amount of people who were lowballing was shocking. I was not expecting that, and I think that's where I started to realize, oh my God, there are too many vendors in the room, because everyone's just trying to shop around, trying to get the best deal.
Yeah.
That was weird to me. It wasn't a specific interaction, but I think overall the energy on that was pretty odd. How about you guys?
I didn't have a weird one, but I live for the wholesome moments, like the wholesome sales. There was a guy who wanted a Mega Tyranitar and the tag team, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's the card I need. Please, can we do a deal?" And sometimes people aren't really genuine. They just want to get the card and flip it. But this kid was like shaking his hands, and he was so happy about it. And I love those moments because he's truly gonna love that card and keep it forever.
That was a tag team, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's a beautiful card too.
Yeah.
So I did have a really, really weird. It was so weird. So it was me and DB Deals were me and Darren were vending together, and like Darren left, and I'm just standing there, just I'm just chilling, and this father and son come over, and they want my PSA 9 Gold Star Groudon with a swirl, and I think I was asking. Maybe it was 2,200. It was a really clean copy. New cert has a swirl, and Gold Star 9s have been climbing. And the son is like, he's like, he's like, let me offer you like 1,600. I'll give you 1,000 cash. I'll give you like 400 Zelle. I'll give you like this much PayPal, and my dad's gonna send you the rest. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, what? Like, 4 different payment methods, and then I was like, I can't do 1,600. And so then the dad starts talking, like he's like, yeah, like what's your name? Like, where are you from? Like, what's your ethnicity? And he's like, listen, if you can cut us a deal for like 1,700 anytime you come to LA, he's like, I got you. I'm a pastor. And I'm just like, what? This just went for a really, really weird turn. I'm just trying to do a deal. And so I told him, like, listen, like at the end of it, I was just like, all right, I don't know what's going on, but let's just flip $1,900 or $2,000 because I think there's other people like waiting, and I ended up getting what I wanted. But I ended up getting the payment like 3-4 different ways, and then I gave him my number, and he actually literally just texted me 5 minutes ago asking for another Gold Star, and I'm like, I hope this doesn't happen again. It's ridiculous.
Wow. Okay. Dang. You think you're gonna text him back?
Just a price, that's all. Just a price. No more back and forth, please. It was an interesting show.
What?
It was definitely an interesting show.
Yeah. Cool. Well, there's not too much of you guys in here, but if you guys want to ask any questions, we're happy to answer. I one question in here: what's the next con? I think the next one is Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, that's the end of the month.
Yeah. And then the Collecticon after that is Chicago. In Dallas, we have NTX Card Show on Sunday the 9th, and then we have Dallas Card Show next week. It's like Thursday to Sunday. I forget the exact dates.
13 to 16.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if we don't have questions, I will ask some questions here. What I would kind of like to know what you guys foresee this year in the market, and if you want to talk about ultra high end or just in general, sealed, what have you. I'm just curious.
You want to go, Miller?
Oh yeah, I got it. In my opinion, I think we're gonna see a large shift from like what's happening now, from modern to more vintage-ish stuff. And then as well as if tag starts doing good, I believe they'll start doing better than CGC and maybe even Beckett, and then they'll be like part of the competition. But I don't know. It's really iffy right now. I'd probably invest in 1 or 2 slabs, kind of like you said you were gonna do, like 5% of tag in your inventory.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I foresee.
How about you, Mushu?
So I think Q1 is cyclically tougher period for Pokemon, for collectibles in general. Like Meta Khai mentioned, people are getting ready to file their taxes. A lot of people are going to be paying taxes. Especially vendors from last year, and just people in general. And so I figured Q1 we normally see a little bit of a dip, which we didn't really see it in January and February, but now that March is rolling around, we're starting to see a little bit of that dip. And then I think early mid-April, we start seeing the rise again, which I do think we're still going to see. But I think a lot of the focus is going to be on vintage. Like Modern had a good 6 to 9 months of just nonstop going up. And I think vintage is about to go through the exact same cycle. And I still think stuff like high-end Japanese promos and stuff, I think they're still going to do really, really well because, looking at the market in Japan, it's still very, very strong. And so I think we're going to see both of those kind of, areas start climbing, especially heading into the Rocket set. And I mean, honestly, I can't tell you what's going to happen after the Rocket set because I know it's going to be absolutely crazy. But, part of me thinks that the Rocket set is, a couple months after that, we could probably start seeing a crash, especially with just looking at the economy, looking at crypto, like just looking at things from a cycle perspective. We're kind of due for a correction, but I think it's going to be later this year. And I think that, but then like you mentioned, Amar, the 30th anniversary is next year. And they're going to definitely do something cool for that. And so it's like, if the market does drop, will the 30th anniversary be the catalyst to help, people are just going to buy the dip and send it even higher? I don't know. Because ever since like COVID put Pokemon back on the map, it's just been really, really odd. And this year, the way the sets are lining up, it's looking like it's going to be a very interesting year, in my opinion. No one expected Modern to go through like the alt art boom, the alt art crash, alt art boom even higher. And, things are still, trending a little bit higher, though a couple of alt arts have dropped. It's just weird. Like it, and this is like one of those unpredictable markets. You really don't know what's going to happen.
For sure. And even more so, and we're not sealed guys, but what's happening with sealed is just insane, right? Like the sealed market is, no one can get their hands on it. Ultra Modern is king. It's super, super liquid. I wonder, because they're now adding guardrails to places like GameStop and they're making pre-order limitations, what's going to happen overall to the sealed market, and if that's actually going to allow the casual fan to be able to purchase the newest product. I think that's ultimately good for the hobby, but I do wonder how that is going to play into a market correction down the road, especially in the summer months when people's times are divided. Okay, we got a question here. Any advice on how to get started? Well, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to tell you this is a terrible time to get started. It's always a terrible time to get started, so don't listen to them. There is always a way to make money in the hobby if you want to be a vendor. I don't know if you were here, JM, before, but we talked about relationships were very important. Don't be an asshole, just general rule of thumb business stuff. But in Pokemon, if I were to start right now, of course I would be intimidated and very scared. I am not a sealed person, so I don't know how I would handle sealed right now. I think it's pretty tough to get into sealed because it's just so hard to find. But if you haven't already, JM, the number one thing that I would do, because you can do it on your phone, laying on your bed, join as many Facebook groups as you possibly can. Because if you have trouble finding inventory, that's the number one spot where you can. So if you're from the DFW area, there are tons of DFW local groups. There are also tons of national groups. There are tons of international groups. And people every day, dozens of times a day on all of these groups with tens of thousands of members are selling singles lots and slabs and pretty much everything you can think of, even sealed product cases, all the way dating back to vintage up to ultra modern. And it's not intimidating because there's something for everyone. And you never know when someone is motivated to sell at a percentage that's to your liking. So for example, we've seen over the past year, vendors being able to buy on average at 70%. That average has changed to 80%, 85%. But that doesn't mean that you still can't find deals. It doesn't mean that people aren't motivated to sell at a lower percentage. You just have to be pretty vigilant on those Facebook groups. There's also Reddit subgroups, whatever they're called, subreddits, and Discord channels as well that you can join. But I would start at Facebook because it's easy to search for those and go from there. Now, if you are curious about vending in person, of course, my recommendation to you is make sure you have the inventory so that you can vend. And when you flip from a collector mindset to a vendor mindset, it's going to hurt, but you have to think about money and you have to think about margins and profit. And I know that sucks. And I know you're going to want to take the money you earned and maybe buy some prismatic evolution packs and see if you get the Umbreon. Don't do it. Think like a vendor. Try to make sure you're always paying attention to how much money you put in versus how much money you get out. So if you're not there yet and you haven't vended before and you don't have the capital or you don't have the inventory, I would recommend building your inventory first by way of the Facebook groups. And then once you are ready, pay attention to your local shows that aren't expensive. Collecticon's like $300 plus flight and hotel. You don't want to afford that in the beginning. But if you can spend $80 to get a table here in a local market and try it out for a day or 2 days, I think that's your best bet. And then when you get into actually vending, make sure you price your cards out 2 to 3 days maximum before, ideally the night before. Make sure you have a good phone, a good calculator. Those things are pretty important. And yeah, I think those are my main suggestions. How about you guys? You guys have any insight into how to start?
Definitely don't rip packs to get money. You don't want to gamble and do that.
My biggest advice is study the market. The market's very, very volatile right now. And I think the best way you can do this, watch vendor POVs. I know a lot of people watch these for the entertainment purpose, but there's a lot of insight that there is, you know, from big names like Bulbasaur, like Jar Chomp Collectibles, Clover, Pack Battle. There's like, you know, there's a lot of big names that sure they're creating them for entertainment purposes, but you know, they're the other side of things is it's a lot of good insight. Like me personally, I didn't really think about vendor POVs until people started coming up to me and saying, you do high-end stuff. Can you do it so that people can understand how your brain works? Like how you think through things. There are a lot of videos out there that are very, very good. Like I personally watch Bulbasaur's videos, Jar Chomp Collectibles. I watch them because they go to all these different cities. Each city has its own market. And if you look at things from the insight perspective, you're essentially learning about each market. You're learning about how trends work with certain cards. And especially if you're starting out, you want to know how the market works because like you really, with how competitive it is, you don't want to make any big mistakes, if that makes sense. You want to always be informed before you're making your next like decision. So I think the vendor POVs is like the best place to start.
Definitely is a good place to start. Just to add on though, honestly, don't be afraid to shoot your shot. You know, there's so many deals, there's so many cards out there. And don't be afraid of rejection either. Like it's gonna happen. You can shoot your shot and then, you know, people are gonna be like, no, I don't want to do that. And that's fine, you know, just move on from that and then go to the next person. There will be one person that'll give you at least a deal where you're able to, you know, make some money off of it as well.
Meta Khai wants to know if you're single, Miller.
For him, yeah.
Good answer. Everything.
David L. Poke Collect, Silver Fox as well. He is saying Collecticon is $375. So again, be careful doing these big shows. You absolutely do not want to overspend when you don't have the inventory. If you're not profiting at a show, don't do the show. And I know that sounds harsh, but there's really no point unless you're trying to go and connect with people and generate a network. But you can do that at local shows to start and go from there.
Yeah, like think about it this way, like just kind of put the three of our, you know, put our costs kind of, it's going to be pretty consistent. For LA, I would say Miller and I each probably spent about $1,000 to get there for Airbnb, you know, Uber, the table, the displays, everything. So if you really think about it, if you're not making at least $1,000 at a show traveling, you're essentially losing money. And so, you know, before you make that big jump, you got to know your margins, you got to know your inventory, you got to be confident in yourself before, you know, anything like that. Otherwise, if you just do it because you see everybody else doing it, your business is just gonna Jesus Christ.
Especially in LA.
Especially in LA. Yeah, I mean, if you don't look at your expenses and stuff and go in, you know, knowing the number you got to hit for things to work out, I mean, it's going to be very, very hard, you know, to be successful as a vendor.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of Mushu, like sometimes you got to pay a lot for overhead, and like every city is different. Like Cali was expensive. Miami this weekend is going to be expensive with hotels and flights too. The flights they're already 700-800, and then the hotel itself is 600. So you have to account overhead too whenever you're starting off and you're deciding, hey, do I really want to travel or should I travel? And can I make back the money that I spent overhead and then some for what I'm selling?
Yep. Okay, chat. How about another question now that you're all hot in here?
Rip for inventory. That's funny.
You know what's crazy is like, you know, I don't rip anymore. I used to rip, and well, there's a clip of me actually ripping for inventory because I ran out of singles at Front Row Pasadena, but that's separate. That's an anomaly. But I actually used to like, I'll go out to an LGS and I will buy a booster box in the hopes of pulling a effing Magikarp. And that is a horrible strategy. You're never going to make money. I don't care how much you believe you will, how much luck you think you have. The way that I've experienced it, you make 30% of what you spend if you rip packs. So don't do it. Unless you want to do it for fun. You can have fun money all day long. But vending money, don't do it. Okay, here's another question here. What's your morning jams before a show? How about you guys answer that one?
Yeah, so when I used to compete, like the video game and the card game, like before nationals, before worlds, I would always play Eye of the Tiger. That would get me locked in, and you know, it worked for me in the competitive scene. I started doing it in the vending scene, and I've always been locked in Saturday morning at shows. So that's probably my jam.
What is BTA OLCTCB, Meta Khai?
Oh God, I don't know what that is.
Barbie World, yes.
Hey, okay, let's be honest though. Barbie World does go hard.
I can see you listening to that too. Those big ass headphones on your head.
Yes, sir.
When I was on my way to the Airbnb, I was blasting "This Is Not a Test" by Missy Elliott. That album. Yeah, I'm a big Missy fan. If I want to turn up and get ready, it's Missy for sure. Here's a good one. Favorite show y'all attended? Geez, that's tough. I would say it's a tie between NTX last fall. NTX last fall. It was the first time I got a slab that was over 6-7K. I got a first ed PSA 7 base set Zard, and it was a pivotal moment for me because I used that Zard to get 10K worth of singles that turned into 13K during the market boom. It was one of the best plays that I've ever done, and I knew it when I was doing it, which felt really, really, really good. The other show that kind of blew my mind, even though I would have loved to sell way more slabs at that show, Front Row Pasadena, which I'll be back at the end of this month. Front Row was I mean, I couldn't pee. It was that busy. It was like an hour I'd have at minimum 15 customers. It was constant. I was always on my feet. So those would be the two for me. How about you guys?
I think Seattle was probably one of my favorite. Seattle was, I think it was in November, December. Miller, I think that was like the first time you and I vended together, right?
Yeah.
That
And
was,
shared a room.
yeah, yeah, we did. I'm not gonna say no to that. It was crazy because we didn't know what to expect. It was our very first front row show, and correct me if I'm wrong, Miller, but you got the Gold Star, the 10 cert Gold Star PSA 10 Mew, and I got the PSA 10 Masaki Gengar 10 cert at that show. And so it was really, really cool. We both got it from the same person. And I remember after I got the Masaki, I turned around and saw him get the Mew, and we just looked at each other and we were like, holy God.
Let's go!
That was a full circle moment. We loved it. And Meta Khai was there too. So it was, I know he told us that was like one of his most fun and favorite shows because all the three Dallas homies were taking over Seattle. So definitely it was a lot of fun.
Mine personally was Atlanta last year, and it wasn't because anything Pokemon. I just met my favorite voice actor, Yuri Lowenthal. He does the voices for Sasuke and Gurren Simon off of Gurren Lagann. So I got to take a picture with him, and then he signed some stuff for me. So definitely one of my favorite shows there.
Sweet. What up, Henry? Noza Cards. Follow him on Instagram. What were the top 3 observations from other people's inventory this past Collecticon? We did talk about this a little bit. My observations were that there were a ton of alt arts on the floor that people were trying to get rid of. I got rid of mine. I actually took a % on mine, which I don't typically do. It was a very high %, but still. There were also a lot of bubble mews that weren't moving. What did you guys see?
I think just it was the biggest Collecticon that we've been to because it's a Cali one. And with that many vendors, kind of seeing that many alt arts really was like, I felt better about myself because I told myself before that show, and I was telling Miller this too. I was like, we don't need alt arts. Like, we need to be different, and we need to complement each other. Because like, if we're going together, we just got to make sure him and I are the 1-2 punch. Like, we have the high end stuff that everybody wants, and just seeing everybody have the exact same thing. Number one was, I mean, I kind of expected that too, given a lot of stuff has been correcting, everyone was going to pull it out and try and dump it. The other thing was everybody also had ponchos, but nobody else was selling them. And I think I sold 8. So it's like, you think about it, it's like that kind of also, it gave me confidence saying, I know what I'm doing. It's one of those types of things. And the third thing is, I didn't see too much sealed at this show aside from like prismatic. It was really, really heavy on alt arts. Like, remember when you and I were walking around tomorrow, that's the only thing that I could I just kept looking at it, and I was like, you know what, I should just not even look at these cases anymore. I'm just going to look down and keep walking. It's the same thing. And it's like, how are you going to sell stuff if you have the exact same thing as everybody else in the room?
And lots of PSA 9 Greninjas as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because the PSA 9 Greninja is like $370 and it's 411 raw, and they were sitting. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
I probably can't add anything on. I mean, y'all said pretty much everything there.
Okay, cool. We get a question here. How do you discipline yourself on using a card for PC? This is a great question versus investment. So maybe you were here. I called this a PC card. I guarantee you I'm going to sell this thing. It's a PC for a minute. I'll tell you this. I'm going to lie here for a second. So I told myself that I was not going to buy any PC until 2026. I bought a swirled up Deoxys 10 this morning. I had to. It's like a pop 26 and it was under $200. Like I had to. Anyway, so it's hard to be disciplined. But as a general rule of thumb, I think like you will get to a point. Oh, is it Profit Center or you think Personal Collection, David? Well, I'm gonna call it PC as in Personal Collection because that's how I take the question. You will get to a point where your PC that you've acquired is you're going to start to view it as money, as if you really become a vendor. And I think people are different and they have different philosophies. Some people have a really separated PC. They've got a whole shelf and walls of a bunch of PC, including slabs and cards, and that's how they are. I think I can speak for a ton of vendors though and say that most of them get rid of their PC once they really start going and start vending because they know that they can get it back. And the motive to actually gain capital and generate their business is overwhelms this concept of having a PC, especially if you are an early stage collector like I was. I didn't have like tens of thousands of dollars in my PC, right? So it wasn't something that I was so attached to or something that I saw as an investment. So I was really able to just, you know what, let me take not my sellable inventory, let me just take everything and count it as inventory and then start to get it back. I do think though, there are pain points, right? Like when I decided, this was, I think, CollectCon DFW last summer, that's when I decided, you know what, I'm putting all my slabs out, I don't care. I started to have my Gengar Mimikyu 10 out. I had my ADP out. I had my Moonbryon out. And this is at the time where, you know, it wasn't like now where everyone has everything. So I had a lot of stuff that no one had. And it burned to sell that stuff. And honestly, I haven't had a Gengar Mimikyu in a long time, and now it's $2,400. So there are going to be times where you liquidate and you build inventory and you get rid of stuff that you once loved and really want. But that's just the name of the game when you're a vendor. And you just have to have confidence that if you're in it for the long run, you're going to get that Gengar Mimikyu back. You're going to get that Moonbryon. I don't have a Moonbryon. I haven't had one in months. I don't care. It's a PC item for every collector. It'll happen at some point if I want it. How about you guys?
You know, I was first talking to Mushu about this when we first met. And I was like, do you ever have a PC? And he was like, bro, I only PC money. And I was like, hey, man, if you're in this business after, you know, being it for a little bit, that's how it has to be sometimes. Like, you can spoil yourself sometimes and keep a PC, like a couple of PC cards here and there. But if you really want to move as a vendor and grow, sometimes having a PC just isn't really a thing. And to piggyback off what you said, you know, cards get recycled. They'll come back. You'll always see them again. So it's okay to sell it and then invest that.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, Miller's correct. I don't PC at all. You know, ever since I sold my PC for, you know, for the sake of my family, like, you know, we got a house that really put me in a position. Ever since I sold the PC and everything, I told myself, we got the house. I told myself, look, I mean, I don't really, if I want to do this as like a full-time thing, I just need to be able to turn and burn things over and over again. And I think what a lot of vendors, I know there's a lot of vendors that PC as well, but there's also a lot of vendors that don't understand that we are really in a very fortunate time in the market with how much price has appreciated and how long it has, that we normally take for granted that there is such a thing as a bear market when everything crashes. And so for me, I'm taking advantage of the opportunity of continually buying, selling over and over to scale my business. And when it, you know, maybe I have a change of heart. There's a time when prices crash, you're going to have a better opportunity to PC something. But right now, when you know the trend is up, that's your game plan should be to just keep scaling up. That's really how it is, because at some point you're not going to be able to do that. All your choices are going to get more difficult, and you know, the whole dynamic changes. You know, everybody's correct. Like it's like a very, very popular quote. everybody is like brilliant in a bull market. The real kings get built in a bear market. So for me, if I ever want to make a big decision like that, it's going to be in a bear market if I want a PC. But right now, we're in a bull market. I'm just going to keep scaling. That's how I think about it.
My mic's out again. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. We can hear you.
I want to take this next one.
Okay. So how do y'all pay yourself? Like what percentage goes into your pocket? So for me, I currently work full-time. I told myself ever since I started vending in March of last year, my entire focus would be, put a little bit into the business, keep scaling it, don't put more money into it so that my personal liability, like if shit hits the fan, I won't have to worry about like, being out in it and a crazy amount of money. And so I've been working this entire time while I've been able to scale up the business. And now actually next Friday is my last day working corporate. So I'm actually going to retire completely from that. And, I finally got to a point where I think I've put myself on a very good launch pad with the brand, with the inventory, with everything that, and, with the guys I'm traveling with, like Miller, like I got a trustworthy person with me. I think I can take the training wheels off and start doing this full time. And so up until this point, I haven't paid myself anything through the business. Like I'm pretty low maintenance when it comes to like outside of travel. Like when we're traveling, Miller knows this. I want to stay at nice hotels. I want to go on the nice airlines. I want to do all that stuff to make sure,
my man says bougie.
Bougie.
Only when it comes to travel. But like outside of that, it's like I'm low maintenance. So I just leave everything in the business, keep betting on myself. And, it'll be a different conversation after next Friday when I start going to shows and, I don't have the full-time job. I'm going to be, relying on the business, but, it'll be a different answer the next time, we do one of these.
Yeah. For me, like nothing goes into my pocket right now, like I'm just not there. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not there yet. When you've developed capital and inventory that is operating in a way that you can pull out cash and take a salary or some sort of monthly earning, that's great. When you're a startup, you can't do that. It's super counterintuitive, and it'll hurt your business if you don't pour every bit of profit right back in. Especially in a market like now, it's pretty counterintuitive to take any profits. Like, yeah, okay, you can buy yourself a dinner after Collecticon, right? I would say that's the extent of it.
Fun fact, the first 2 years of people that do startups, they normally don't make anything.
Yep.
It's all about scaling as much as you can before you decide to take any sizable cut to go back into your pocket. That's what you do. In a 9 to 5, you're working for somebody else. You're getting your paychecks, but when you're working for yourself, you know that the added responsibility is sometimes you're going to have to, either work harder to make ends meet, or you're just going full time, scale mode. That's just what comes with being a vendor, in my opinion.
Yeah, personally, even when I started, all the money I get, it really just goes back to the business. As Pocket Pals and Mushu said, there's not a time where I profit and I don't put it back. It's really the only thing you can do to scale. The money shouldn't go elsewhere unless, you got to pay for bills and all this other stuff. But if you want to grow, put it back in the business.
Yep. So we'll probably just take a couple more questions here. What up, Jason? Jason is not that newbie. Everybody follow Rock Bottom Uncle. He's a Dallas homie. Love him to death. Okay, thoughts on grades under a PSA 10 moving up for modern as they do for vintage? I have two opinions. Well, the same opinion, but two observations. It's not going to happen for Sword and Shield. It will absolutely happen for Scarlet and Violet. Here's why. The print quality is very different between the two blocks. Sword and Shield the 10 rate is extremely high. As we've seen with the illustration rare boom, half the reason why these PSA 10 illustration rares are so expensive is because they're extremely hard to grade. And what we're seeing already, it's not even like it's going to happen in the future. Illustration rare 9s are worth more than a raw copy, which is what we want to see. Do I think it's going to be the exact same as we have with vintage, where, you know, a Magikarp 6 from Paldea is going to be worth something? No, I don't. But I do think an 8, 9, and 10 will have different values that are possibly more than raw over time in Scarlet and Violet. I think Sword and Shield, it's not going to happen. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's a good one here. What was y'all's inventory value when you started to vend? Did y'all have something established such as Insta, Facebook, whatnot? That's a loaded question for me, because like I said earlier, I had a split of PC and sellable inventory. I would say like all in, that amount was like, when I was starting vending, like what I was selling was around 10K, 20, 15K maybe. Obviously it's a different story now, but it started pretty small. I would say though, if you're starting out as a vendor, like I think in today's market, you're going to want at least 25K to start with. How about you guys?
Miller, you gonna go first?
You got it.
So my story is honestly like, it's a unicorn story. Like I will say straight up, this is not how it's going to go for 99.9% of people. So Genghis Collectibles is one of my good friends locally. I had my Facebook. I've been in the game for a long, long time, and so people have already known me. Haven't gone on Whatnot. I started my business Instagram probably around the end of March, but I told myself I wanted to put $1,000 into the business, and that's essentially what I did. And I bought, with my first 1,000, I bought 3 Espeon VMAX alt arts from Genghis Collectibles. And from there, I essentially just kept scaling that $1,000. Of course, I put money out of my own pocket to pay for traveling expenses, because there's no way you're going to be able to scale an inventory and keep pulling money out of it. I'm thankful I have my day job to get me over the past 11 months, but I just kept turning and burning, going to every local show, hustling on Facebook and stuff. And 11 months later, I'm sitting consistently on $100,000 in inventory, and basically in a place where I can leave my day job. Like I think it was just a lot of networking. It was a lot of luck. I think 75% of it was definitely luck. Because early on, like when I went my first Houston Collecticon, I had 5K in inventory, 5K in cash. And then when I went back last November with Atlas and Genghis Collectibles, Miller and Jenny, I had about 50,000. And so I got lucky. I rode the alt art boom up. I got lucky. I found some cheap gold stars that I was able to flip for, crazy amount of money. So it's one of those stories that like you're not going to really hear too often, but that's kind of how I rose to where I am now. And now, I don't take any of that for granted. Like it's an absolute hell growing a business as a startup. Like it's not fun, but you get lucky along the way, you meet some good friends, and that kind of just carries you the rest of the way. So.
For me, myself, when I started vending, I was mainly a collector before. So, in the start of the stream, Pocket Pals mentioned me selling my whole First Ed Shining set. And that's really how I started vending. After I went to New Jersey, did that deal, and then I got 20K from it. I was like, let's see where I can go with this. And as for having stuff established, I didn't have much established other than when I bought from people. Like whenever I was a collector, I always bothered people with like the nice stuff. I always shot my shot. So, I kind of knew those people. So I wouldn't say I was established. I would just say that I have like relationships pretty much.
The perfect success story of collector to vendor is 100% Miller.
Yeah.
This guy was literally collecting first ed Neo Shining 10s and would not get rid of them. And then all of a sudden something clicked, he got rid of them, and then he absolutely caught on fire. And now, you go from having the full set of the first ed PSA 10 Neo Shinings to having 15 of 27 PSA 10 Gold Stars. I mean, that's like a perfect success story if there is another one out there. So
yeah, we kind of have two unicorns on this live stream right now.
Yeah, and they come together.
Harold and Kumar.
Yeah, Harold and Kumar.
I'm gonna quickly answer this one. Jay Houston. Moving on. Okay. We're gonna do two more questions here. I'm gonna save one that I really love for the end from Angel's Pokedex. But I like this one because we haven't touched on. Oops, not that one. I'm so sorry. Where to go? It's about Japanese. Here we go. Any advice on monitoring the Japanese market? Some of us dabble in Japanese. I think actually, if Dylan was here, Dylan, if you're actually watching while you're driving, chime in. But I do have some thoughts about this because when I started, Japanese alt arts were more expensive than their English counterparts. And then you guys have to pay attention to the actual economy outside of Pokemon because it affects Pokemon. The Japanese economy crashed and it changed everything. I'm not going to mention waifus because it's a totally niche thing and it had a boom and tanked and for very separate reasons. But I will say monitoring the Japanese market means a couple of things. Watching the Japanese economy, number one. Number two, in today's market, relevant to what's happening now in English, what we're seeing is, and Nostalgianomics actually talks about this all the time, you have people who are priced out of English. They can't afford it. So they're buying into Japanese Bubble Muse, Japanese Greninjas, and there's a trickle effect or ripple effect. They are gaining in popularity. They're gaining in value. I think just from an economic perspective, as the Japanese economy starts to heal from what it once was in late 2023 into 24, I do think that the Japanese market will come back even stronger than it is now. I also think, and I'll let you guys talk about this more, but Japanese exclusives are doing something crazy right now. And as an aside, this is going to apply to Chinese over the next 5 years. You absolutely should treat Chinese like Japanese in the next 5 years because of how big that market is and what Pokemon is doing in Chinese specifically with the 151 exclusive set, with the new Master Balls, with the Mew promo, the different Pikachu promos. It is just as cool as Chinese or as Japanese, and people just haven't caught on. I promise you it will be as valuable and as liquid over time. But yeah, like what do you guys think about especially like high-end promos, all that stuff, and how to monitor the market there?
Mushu, you're the poncho go, bro. You got this.
I think the Japanese market is going to continue to do really well because I think within the past like 6 to 9 months, maybe a little bit longer, the buyers in China as well also tapped into it. So I feel like you have just a lot of buyers in Asia altogether for stuff like ponchos. Like, if you look at some of the big names that have lots of ponchos, like Jay Houston, New York Crazy Slab Man. There's a couple of guys on Instagram that just have a lot because they have the connections overseas as well. They're kind of tapped in. And what I personally do is I follow all these guys and I watch the trends as well, because whenever you see 3 or 4 really big names starting to do the exact same thing, there's a reason they're doing it. They're not with stuff like this. Like I really don't think you can pump and dump it. Now, I will have a better answer because I'm going to be going to Tokyo, end of this month to early April. And so I'm going to go there and, check the shops, talk to some, local shops over there and see what they think about it but from somebody like from the outside looking in, I just think that people are just starting to see all the crazy cool exclusives that they have. And there's also a lot of money in crypto. Like, don't get me wrong. Like with the huge boom that we've had over the past like 6 to 9 months, I know a lot of people are taking crypto gains and putting it into like high-end Japanese stuff like ponchos, because I have people in my DMs saying that, they can buy my ponchos for crypto and stuff like that, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana and stuff. So I think there's a lot of liquidity, overseas and just here. And because the demand is like super, super good for stuff like ponchos. And I think like waifus was its own kind of weird like bubble because it kind of happened all of a sudden. But, with ponchos, you're literally looking at a Pikachu wearing a bunch of different costumes of like the coolest Pokemon, like the Mario, Luigi, the coolest characters on the block. So it's like you think about things like that, and newer people coming in, they're going to feel nostalgic because they grew up with like all these different Pokemon with Mario, Luigi. There's a lot of nostalgia in those like sets like ponchos. And I think there's a lot of positive growth to come, if anything. That's only talking about ponchos because I don't do any other Japanese high-end promos. I tried Gold Stars. That's tough. Yeah. Sorry. The Munch.
Yeah. These are going up.
Munch is starting to go up, amazing art pieces. And, that's literally catering to like vintage art.
Yeah.
So people are going to get into stuff like that. These exclusives are just so freaking cool. And, the price is really, really high, but more and more people are getting into it. What's that celebrity's name? I think it was in Japan or China. It's like Jay Chu or something.
Yeah, something like that.
He was even on his Instagram buying ponchos in Japan. And it's like you're starting to see higher net worth individuals like aping into stuff like this. And you're also seeing vendors getting into it, like the vendors that have like the sense of the Japanese market. And like if you just piece things together, you start seeing a trail of where things could possibly go. And that's kind of how I look at it. Just make sure you network, make sure you follow as many people as you can. So your feed, you're consistently seeing, Japanese market, English market, and then you can make your own assessments on that.
Okay, we're actually going to do 2 more questions because a good question just came in. I'd like to answer it. What up, SJ? And thanks for the kind words in the chat. This is a hard one. I think the plays are harder and harder to find these days, I'll be honest. We just went through a monumental, once-in-a-generation, I think, boom. And will it happen again? Yeah, totally. But I don't think to this extent. And it's really hard to make plays on high-end, on modern, on vintage, because everyone is doing those plays right now.
Yeah, once you hear about it, it's too late.
Yep.
100%. So like everyone's talking about megas. I got really lucky this week, but I'm telling you right now, everyone already bought all the megas. And the play on megas, by the way, was last summer. People were talking about it then, and no one did it. That was the play. People talk about mid-era. People talk about niche stuff. I mean, I guess in a sense, for me, like I probably should put my money where my mouth is. I want to get into Chinese exclusives. I think there's a huge play there.
Untapped market.
That Pikachu is like $600 right now. That the Mew that's coming out, everyone's going to want it. I think that's not actually a play, but if you get your hands on one, it's a quick flip. My answer to that, just thinking about it more, would be Chinese. How about you guys?
I think you have to start looking at at some point the population does matter. And we had a very, very I consider it like aggressive expansion in price over the past 3 to 6 months where pop didn't even matter. You saw Moonbryon go from 1,000 to like 1,600 back to 1,000 to 3,000. and the pop is 16, 17,000. You know, at some point, supply and demand, you know, is basic economics. At some point, it's going to correct itself. And I mean, it could happen eventually with Moonbreon. We saw it come from 3,000 back down to like 2,400. Like that's one big aspect of economics. Like in any market, supply and demand will, you know, it'll rectify itself. Now, I mean, Miller, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but gold stars, you have the 10s. What I noticed is all the 9s and 8s started catching up.
Yeah.
It's been an absolutely insane play, and that's something that I caught on. And I wouldn't have caught on if I wasn't talking to Miller like every single day. Like seeing him have the PSA 10s, I just started looking at that and I was like, you know what? These lower grades makes a lot more sense because especially with him and I being next to each other, if someone's going to want a 10, they're going to go to him for it. If someone's not going to be able to afford it, they're not going to go to him for it. Like it's as simple as that. And so I started tracking the 8s and the 9s, and I noticed there's a lot of catch up to do. So I hopped in and I noticed, you know, here comes the move. And it's also the gradual shift from modern to mid-era to vintage. And so it's just like an assessment that I saw. I still think gold stars are some of the best like cards in the game to get into if you want to make another play. But personally, I feel like one of the untapped markets that hasn't happened yet, you know, now seeing megas hit, is level X's. Like it's probably one of my favorite generations because I also play like both. Ironically, both my decks at the World Championships were Galley Gardevoir and Palkia level X. They're absolutely crazy like artworks. And, you know, they reprinted in the celebration set with Garchomp and Luxray. But I think the level X ones are so low pop that, you know, I feel like they're hard to find, but if you can find them, like I'm personally going to be looking for level X's. I just think that if megas have their time, level X's are going to have to come. Like we also know the black and white sets are coming out soon. Like there's going to be something, there's some speculation, but we haven't seen anything similar to level X's. And so I think that it's just a hot take. I think that could potentially be one of the next plays, in my opinion.
Agreed. Personally, I think lower pop cards are the next play. Like, if you look at, there's this one recent sale for like a Plasma EX of a Palkia. That one's really low pop at like a 40 or 50. And cards like that are starting to pop up and pop off on definitely their prices. So if you ever find any low pop cards or that are for sale, I definitely pick them up.
And the thing with the low pop, and it was more of a play last month than it is now that we're in March. Yo, if there are low pop PSA 10s that the last sale was December and there's something listed that's similar in price, pick that up because it is worth way more now and it's just somebody hasn't found it.
I'll give you a good example. Atlanta, Darren saw this first. So there was a guy that walked over with a 2-cert PSA 10 Blastoise EX from X and Y. So like the last sold was there was maybe 2 or 3 sales only. It's like pop 20 or something like that. Maybe it was less. And the last sold was like $1,100. And, you know, the guy didn't know what it was worth. And I was like, well, I mean, honestly, I don't know what it's worth either because there's no listings. And so he was like, you know what? I'll sell it for $1,200. I'm like, okay, done. Like this is a beautiful card. And it was so low pop that I even posted it on my story and I had like 10 people asking for it. And I ended up selling it that same night to a low pop collector who paid me $3,000 for that card because he was collecting low pop. If you want to make a good play, Miller's absolutely right. You know, if it's not PSA 10 gold stars, it could be something from X and Y, something from black and white, something from mid-era that just hasn't been touched yet. You know, there's a lot of opportunities with low pop. It's just a matter of finding it and holding it until the right person comes along.
I also think with ultra modern, one thing I noticed is like follow when people talk about the illustration or the artwork. 9 times out of 10, if it's talked about and people like it, it will increase in value. In addition to that, like I have a theory that any modern Pokemon card that has a moon or a sun or a circle in the center will always do well.
That's fair. That's fair from experience.
Even if it's like a random circle, it doesn't matter. If it's a circle behind the Pokemon's in the center, and there's like a mountain, like Iron Crown, right? Iron Crown's a good play.
Yeah.
It's gonna go up, promise. I'll clip this and I'll show you guys in a month. But yeah, those things I think are, as you're a vendor and you start to hear things, you see that happen from time to time. Okay, so last question, and there are tons of good questions, but we do have to end it here soon. So I'm going to take one last question from Angel's Pokedex. If you had to restart all over again, what would you do different? I can give you my answer. It's a quick one. I would have thought more like a vendor sooner. You know, getting into this, I was a collector and I was having a lot of fun and I was spending a lot of money ripping packs and learning about the hobby. And I don't fault myself for doing that. I was having a blast. But I do think that at the time when I decided to become a vendor, I should have been a bit more responsible about it, I'll be honest. And now I am, and it's great. And yeah, I think I'm at a good place and I can't wait to see how this year unfolds. But I definitely, if I had to start over, I would have more of a vendor mindset earlier on.
For me personally, I don't think I would have changed anything differently. Like all the decisions I've made and all the things I've done, like I was able to meet you guys. I was able to learn from, you know, the things I've done, as in like went to New Jersey, sell. I learned how to sell at a percentage. Like I don't really would do anything different.
So I agree with Miller. I really don't think I would do anything differently because I learned how to hustle with nothing really, and to now kind of grow network and everything, being at a much bigger scale, it makes everything so much easier. You know, I think the mindset I also really had was a lot of vendors start with low end and go to high end. I kind of flipped the pyramid over and started with high end so that I would have the hardest part of, you know, vending down. And then I could always trickle down to low end because I would know that I have the best clientele out there. And then, you know, if I ever want to go smaller, it's so much easier because you know that you have like big cards that you can push out and get into tons of smaller stuff. Like I could very easily, you know, work for any sort of, you know, price range. Yeah, that's probably all I gotta say.
Cool. Well, we'll park it here. I just wanted to give a special thanks to Atlas Win. Everybody follow Atlas Win. That's Atlas, I think, _win.
Yeah.
Yeah, Atlas _win. And Mushu's Collectibles, the Poncho King. That's at Mushu's Collectibles. Thank you guys so much for doing this. If you guys like this, by the way, let us know. We'll do more of them. We like these recaps. We think we like talking to you. And appreciate your time and hope to see you guys soon. We'll be at NTX. Some of us will be this Sunday. And if you don't catch us there, we'll be at Dallas Card Show. If you don't catch us there, we'll be at Collecticon Fort Lauderdale. If you don't catch us there, we'll be at Collecticon Chicago, and so on. So see you soon. See you on the road. Thanks so much for tuning in, and have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
See ya.